Jabba's cousins arrive to claim his territory. The Tusken Raiders stop a train. Boba Fett is reborn and more as the Sky Guys are back to recap Chapter 2 of the Book of Boba Fett.
All right, we are back here on the Sky Guys recapping the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 2, the Tribes of Tatooine, and a big crowd here today, guys. Going first up, the man whose voice you hear in the introduction every week, Pete Consadori. Pete, how are you?
I feel like I saw you guys last week. Great to be back. He's talking Star Wars. Usually this is like a monthly thing, but we've been doing it week to week with Book of Boba Fett. So I'm excited to be here with you and Nick, and of course our newest guest, Mike. So, excited to talk about Chapter 2.
Yep. Next up, as always, we'll say he's the chieftain of the Tusken village here, Nick Fraietta. Nick, how are you?
Doing well. I'll be completely honest. At first, I hated this episode. We're going to get into it, obviously, but I hated this episode when I watched it. I was appalled. And here we are 10 hours later, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah. Just when you think they're out, they pulled you back in.
Yeah, it grew on me, and I'm happy we don't record at 10 a.m. because then I would have gave it a 1 out of 10.
All right. Also with us today, our special guest. We got some guests on during the season Book of Boba Fett. He's a good friend of ours. He contributed a ranking to the Star Wars movie rankings, and welcome in Mike Brescia. Mike, well, first appearance on the podcast. How are you?
Doing great, Mike. It's great to be here, and thank you very much for the nice introduction. I listen in all the time. Been listening into this, to the Sky Guys podcast specifically now. It's been great. So I'm very happy to join on board and to discuss a little bit about some live action Star Wars. Very exciting time.
Yeah,
Mike, don't forget that Mike. So I'm going to call you. I'm going to call you Phillips for this episode. Is that all right?
Yep.
So Phillips, don't forget to give Mike credit for being the bench coach of the Hitmen Championship softball team.
Yes, he was a very important contributor to the championship lineup there for the Summer League.
Very happy to be there and, show some support. Every time I went, we always won. So I'd like to attribute a little bit of that good luck to me, but, I can't say too much.
Yeah, I'm also glad you brought up the Sky Guys podcast feed because in case people are not aware, it wasn't just on the Suffering feed. So the Sky Guys are doing all the Star Wars stuff. So weekly coverage of Book of Boba Fett, any future Star Wars shows, Obi-Wan, Andor this year for sure. We went through all the animated stuff, and if you like the Star Wars stuff, subscribe to the Sky Guys. You'll get the episodes pretty quickly after the episode airs. So, example, Book of Boba Fett episodes drop on Wednesday, record on Wednesday night. You should have in your feed some point on Thursday. If you're in the Suffering feed, you'll get it, but it's gonna be a few days later. So if you want that right away, Pete, they should hop on the Sky Guys feed.
I mean, got to get on that feed, right? You get immediate access. You don't have to wait. Unless you don't want spoilers and you haven't watched the show, maybe you should wait to watch the actual chapter before you listen to us. But yeah, no, absolutely. Get on that feed and get that premium access, right?
Yeah. Premium access for sure. And we're going to start out. We're going to dive into Chapter 2, the Tribes of Tatooine, a much longer episode than the premiere, 52 minutes, including the credits. And Mike, since we not talked to you last week, what did you think about the premiere of the Book of Boba Fett?
You know what? I thought it was a good, I thought it was a pretty good introduction to Boba Fett. I know, he's a character that we've all grown to know and love. Looking back at the original trilogy, you get to see him. He's only been in the, in the movies, maybe a couple of minutes at most. But the way he's kind of impacted us, has been great. And then of course with his further involvement with, with the other shows and everything, building on his character. It's great to finally have everything come back via live action. A lot of people I know are excited about that. So am I.
Yeah, I know, Nick, you made this point on the podcast before. You said you think that Boba Fett is the most impactful character in the history of Star Wars. And I think you have a strong case to make on that.
I did. I said, well, I was a little wrong because we watched the holiday special and I was wrong, but I said that he was just a cool guy in a costume and it led to an entire race of people, the Mandalorians, an entire show, the Mandalorian, and multiple arcs within the shows we've watched in the past, like Clone Wars and Rebels. But I was wrong because I said that he'd have a name, and I didn't realize he was named in the holiday special. So he was named. I thought he wasn't named until Return of the Jedi when Han Solo said his name, but that is not true.
Yeah, and Pete, aren't you glad we got the information from the holiday special?
No, I'm not at all.
It's okay. We don't have to watch it again.
Please, I don't ever want to.
Yeah, let's get into this episode specifically. We'll start out here we build on where we started in chapter 1, where we get the aftermath of the attack on Boba Fett in the square in Mos Espa, and Fennec has captured one of the assassins, and is from the group called the Night Wind. And Mike, in terms of naming here, figure good branding, guys. That good branding for an assassin group being Night Wind.
The Night Wind, yes, it's it's very very mysterious, right? It's it's shady. There's just a lot going on there. I think it's a great name for for a group of assassins. It's like the Night Wind. You don't see it come through, but it comes through hard, right? So that's definitely a great name for for them.
Yeah, and Pete, we can start off here with the assassin here, where Fennec brings him in, and you have this whole situation where like, oh, who sent you? And the droid, I forget the droid's name, he just says, you can't get him to talk. And then Fennec has this great pull and say, hey, if you're not going to talk to us, talk to the Rancor. And dropped him in. He squeals pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, it was expected on my end. I don't know, Mike and Nick, how you felt about it, but I feel like something along those lines were going to happen. Just typical prisoner situation in most movies, and especially Star Wars. Like, well, if you don't want to talk to me, you can talk to the monster. I was hoping the Rancor showed up, like if they had one randomly. But yeah, I mean, he squealed pretty quickly, and I think we all kind of saw it coming that he was hired by the mayor, or maybe someone in the mayor's office, quote unquote, if you will. We'll talk about it a little bit more in depth. The current timeline to me is just not significant enough to care that much for me, but we'll talk about it more later.
Yeah, and Nick, were you at all confused in there when they did? I was like, wait a minute, did they actually get a Rancor off screen, or did you buy this, figure out it was a ruse right away?
Well, if you remember, Bib Fortuna got a Rancor in the Bad Batch.
Yes.
So I was expecting to see that Rancor show up, but it didn't. So it led me to believe either something happened or they forgot. I don't think they forgot, considering Filoni was involved in both shows, and he was literally like a year ago. So I don't think he forgot. But I was expecting that Rancor to show up, and it didn't. So it leads me to believe, I guess, something happened it was a long time ago. Bad Batch, 25 years ago at this point?
Yeah, about 25 years.
So it's possible that it died 24 years ago. So you can't really think that they forgot about it. But yeah, it was a little. I expected to see something down there, but I understand the idea behind it. Like, get it down, go down there, and it's fear that something's going to happen. But then Boba's not actually going to do anything because that's his style of ruling. And I also noticed there was a rock down there, a loose rock, and I think that was the rock that Luke threw in Empire Strikes. The one, the Land of that, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, and Mike, did you expect me to call back to Luke's rock in this episode?
Yeah, Luke's rock. I love it. It's definitely a great callback. But just wanted to start off right away when you had the prisoner, when he said Ichuta, right? I immediately thought about Empire Strikes Back, right?
How rude.
Yeah, exactly, right? When 3PO goes, how rude. So that must be some kind of disrespect in some language, right? I would assume Huttese or something like that. But I was actually talking with Nick earlier about the Rancor, and I feel like there's two different perspectives. When we had a little talk, not having the Rancor down there, it kind of appeased older fans who may not have seen the Bad Batch, right? Because they understand that Jabba's Rancor died, right? He was killed by Luke. But at the same time, because there's been a time discrepancy between the Bad Batch and now in the current situation, Star Wars kind of lets you to imply of what happened. Like maybe Bib's Rancor was killed off, or maybe Boba let it escape, or what the reason may be. So they don't really touch up on that, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. And P, I think we can skip ahead now. We'll go to now. They bring the Night Wind assassin to meet the mayor, and we get to the main desk there. And I don't know what this receptionist guy was thinking, but you see two assassins coming with guns and a prisoner tied up. Like, what makes you think that you're gonna get away with? Oh, the mayor's not in now. Oh, sure, I'll come back later. Like, what part of him actually thought that would work?
I feel like that was maybe more of the comic relief part of the episode, right? I mean, you got Boba Fett and Fennec walking in, and they go, "Oh yeah, like you're not on the list. Like you don't have an appointment." Yeah. It was nice. It was a nice little kind of like comic break. Like, oh, haha, like it's some guy trying to protect the mayor's office, and maybe he knows that some people walk in all the time trying to get in there. But I find that mayor's office scene very interesting. I feel like the mayor may be playing both sides. Obviously, we'll need to watch the rest of the season to figure that out. But it seemed to me that maybe the messenger of the mayor is the problem and not the mayor, judging from what happened this episode. But it also might be the mayor playing two sides, like I said.
Yeah, and Nick, we do meet the mayor because Boba basically forces his way in past the major domo, and we did talk about this last week that the long neck guy we saw in the trailer, the Ithorian, is the mayor, and we have this scene where he basically kills the bounty hunter and says, like, we don't associate criminals here. Thank you for finding him. Here's your reward. And Boba's like, hey, I'm not a bounty hunter. I'm the true inheritor to the Jabba's throne here, and I'm the inspector here. So what do you think of the interaction between the mayor and Boba Fett?
I think it just shows us, I mean, it's really my opinion, it doesn't really show us for sure, but it shows us that Lady Garza, Jennifer Beals' character, the mayor, they're all working for the Hutts. Not working for the Hutts, but they're all in cahoots. They're all in cahoots with the Hutts. They're all in it together because the Hutts give them, I guess, more protection than Boba would. I think that shows that, and that's what and they had their different ways of showing it to Boba in the first episode. And in the first episode, I'll just gonna call her Jennifer Beals. Jennifer Beals paid off Boba Fett. It was easier for them. That was their mindset, and the mayor's mindset was to intimidate him. But I think they're all working with the Hutts, and that's their idea. And you notice, like, he says to her, "You're sweating. What's going on?" This, now she's nervous about it. She knows he's on to it. She knows that he's on to them, kind of thing. And I think that's going to be your ending of the show there, when you see the three of them, the mayor, that is, the Jennifer Beals, and the Hutts, and of course whoever the Hutts have with them, which we'll get into in a second, all verse Boba Fett and whoever he recruits along the way, which I think will be some familiar faces.
Yeah, and Mike, what do you think about the voice for the Ithorian here? I mean, Robert Rodriguez voices him through that Universal Translator thing. That voice kind of threw me off for most of that scene.
Yeah, I thought it was rather odd, but I do appreciate the fact that because it's an alien species, it doesn't speak English, that a proper translator is needed. And also on top of that, I know the mayor, Mark Shaiz, right? That's what his name is. I remember seeing a certain species like that in Tatooine in A New Hope, probably in the bar scene. So I think to myself, could maybe that could have been him, prior to the events that happened, in current day.
Yeah, Pete, what do you think about that theory there, where maybe this guy who was, he's drinking his heart away in the cantina in the New Hope, he decided, I'm gonna get into politics, and now about 9 years later, he's the mayor of a town. So good job if that's the same guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a huge callback, and that's also just a huge character development moment for the show. I can't see it being that far fetched, right? I mean, Star Wars is all about revenge and what's happened in the past, and this is how it is now, and I can absolutely see them taking characters that were just characters you didn't even notice were there, right? Obviously, Mike made that connection. I would have never made that connection because I guess I don't pay attention that well. But it would be very cool if something along those lines come through the season where they start explaining that this person was in the past movies and now they want their own piece of the franchise, if you will.
Yeah, Nick, what do you think about that?
It's not him, but it's a good. I looked up the guy, and that's what's so crazy about Star Wars is like this guy who was in the bar in A New Hope has a name, a backstory, a height. He's 1.95 meters. He's a male. I mean,
how tall is the mayor?
How tall is the mayor?
Yeah, we need this information.
I hope they have it.
Well,
I hope they have it.
They got the height on the random dude from.
He is. The mayor is. I don't have it yet, but this guy has a whole backstory. He was involved in a lot of non-canon things, but even in canon stuff, he's in a lot of stuff. It's like crazy to think. And then it said basically that he joined the rebellion and fought against the Empire. But it was interesting that the guy was in 4 seconds of screen time, and he has an entire backstory.
Yeah, it was sort of like Mike. I don't know, sort of feel like some of these shows where you have this story, the small town Manhattan, where everybody in Manhattan seems to pop up and they're all in everybody's business all the time. So maybe it's small town cantina in Star Wars, or all the cantina folks are in every single other person's business in the rest of the galaxy.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I love that feature too. It's just all these random characters that show up, as little as they might be. They could always pop back. And that's the beauty of the Star Wars universe. It's just creating that expansion and creating that those additional stories and bringing it all together. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And let's go ahead a little bit, because the mayor basically says, "Hey, you should go visit your friend, Madame Garza." They go back there. Then she basically says, "You don't hear who's here." We go outside and we see two huts being carried on a thing by those poor workers who basically they're about to cave out or have to carry about like 3-4 tons of hut along the streets of Tatooine. And we find out that they are Jabba the Hutt's cousins. They're here to reclaim the throne. And Pete, I laughed so hard when Boba Fett was like, "I don't care what's on your tablet. I'm in charge."
Yeah, I got really scared that they were going to be related to Zero. I got really scared. I didn't want to have any more Zero the Hutt references. I didn't want to hear that guy's name anymore. It's expected that Boba Fett's going to say, "Listen, I'm in charge." He's not a weak-willed, if you will, character. Obviously, he's been a little underwhelming in the current timeline of the show, in my opinion, but he's not he's still considered a badass. So I honestly saw it coming a little bit that he was going to say "No, you got to leave." And I also kind of saw the Hutts saying "We could deal with this later. We're not going to do it right now." And I think that sets up for later episodes.
Yeah, Nick, when you saw these two Hutts show up and they said they're related to Jabba, did you go where Pete and I went? You said, "Oh no, we're gonna have Zero reference in some way." They made these Zero's secret children or something like that.
I thought it was going to be Jabba's son.
Yeah,
because he was in the he was
movie.
in the Zero movie, that awful thing. He was in that too, but they did, I thought it'd be him, but I mean, if there's two of them, and I can make another one up anyway, so what's the point? And there's no reason. I don't know. To me, it kind of seems weird and annoying when you know a character for 40 years, like we've known Jabba literally for 39 years, and then they're just here's his brother. I know his cousin in this case, but it's just kind of annoying to me. Oh, he had a brother after all this time. We had no idea. What if we just found out Han Solo had a brother? It'd be kind of weird,
Yeah. I also,
for reference, Jabba weighs 2,994 pounds.
yeah, so
I would assume these guys were a little less, but not much. Maybe 2,500 each.
Yeah, so again, a couple tons.
Yeah, that's about 2.5 tons they were carrying, and they only had 10 guys?
Yeah, look about maybe
15
guys. Yeah, 15 guys.
It's a lot of weight. It's 200 pounds a person.
Yeah, you saw them buckling at the end there, Mike. They were just standing there can we just go somewhere and not have to stand here with these guys?
So I also noticed something that I don't know if I want to bring it up yet, but I'm afraid if I don't bring it up, I'll forget. So I'm going to bring it up anyway. The species that Bosk is, I don't know how to pronounce it.
The Trandoshans?
Yeah, one of them was carrying Jabba, and that's considered wrong in the universe of Star Wars because they're considered a high class of people. So for him to be doing that means that it shows you how much higher of class the Hutts are than anyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not even in power, and people are fearing them when they're in the streets, and they have people worshiping them and they're carrying them. They're not even in power.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And Mike, I want to throw this in question your way here because we heard a little aside between Boba and Fennec where I think Fennec was something like, "Hey, why don't you just kill them and just get this over with and end our threat?" And then Boba's saying, "Oh, you need permission to kill the Hutts." And what do you think do you have any sort of theory on why that's the case?
Sure. So I think this references to the mafia, the way it works, right?
Yeah.
You have the commission, right? That could be maybe the crime syndicates. That could be, the whole order, of representatives coming together. Basically, I think, it kind of parallels that issue where, in order to kill a high-ranking member of another clan, you have to go to this commission, to this group of leaders, collectively, in order to, get permission to do so. So I think, it might go more along those lines. Just real quick, I wanted to mention, I thought it was hilarious when you saw both of the Hutts up there, and I guess that the male cousin had some kind of rodent or something like that.
Yep.
And, while sweating in the desert sun, he was literally just dabbing his face with that poor animal. that killed me. And you could see the look of despair in that animal's face. It was great. It was amazing.
There's some great unintentional humor in there. And Pete, I want to mention also, we get a clear shot of their hired gun bounty hunter. His name is Black Kersantin, the Black Wookiee. So were you aware that he actually comes from canon and he actually is referenced in other Star Wars material?
So I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, and I could be wrong again. He said that this is a particular character that had got involved in a fight with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And that's where I think he has a scar on his face came from. So we may see him in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I don't know if that information is correct. I think that's a pretty cool character to build off of. I think that's a character that can be in this show for seasons to come. I wouldn't go as far as saying that it's going to be the main villain of every single season, but I can see almost like him becoming an Agent Callus of sorts. Not the caliber of character, but he's working for the wrong people, quote unquote, and then maybe later on the seasons, in the show, he starts working with Boba. So I think that's a pretty big character, and keep your eyes out for that character, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Nick, that's a great point. I did look up on the Star Wars wiki while we were going here about this character, Black Kersantin, and the incident that Pete references where he was hired by Jabba to kill Obi-Wan or something like that. That happens in 10 BBYs, which is, again, about the time frame the Obi-Wan show is supposed to take place in. So you could see this guy again.
Well, do you think they would? My thought is no. Do you think they would take something that's already been published in comics or a book or something else and bring it to the screen? I think the only time that I've heard of that they've ever done that is when they show you in the opening scene of Bad Batch, what's his name, Kanan's master dying. That's the only time they've ever done something like that. I don't think they would do that because it's already been published.
Yeah, I could see that though, Mike. It's sort of like maybe a 2-minute flashback scene to like.
Oh yeah,
I can see that. Not like go through the whole thing, but sort of like, oh, like I've seen it before and have like a flashback to that kind of.
So, yeah, I can see that definitely. Now, to my understanding, he is. I'm just gonna call him Black K. I think it's easier.
Yep.
That's also considered one of his nicknames, so that's fine. Black K, they say, is significantly stronger and better at bounty hunting and more powerful than Boba Fett, like significantly. So in my mind, the next couple of episodes, especially because he needs to seek permission from other families, if you will, like if we're going to take just like the Godfather in a way, if he needs to seek permission from other families, he's going to recruit along the way and get people on his cause to take down the Hutts and Black K. And I don't think he can beat Black K one-on-one in combat, and he's going to require help. And I think the help he's going to get, I mentioned the species earlier, I think he's going to get Bosk.
Yeah.
To help him. They're going to fight him together.
Yeah, and Mike, I do think I'm curious to see what more get out of this character, because I hope this is not going down the route of original Boba Fett, Captain Phasma. We're like, oh, he looks cool, and then he's lame because they don't do anything with him. I hope we actually get some development with this guy.
I hope so too. When I was watching and I see this badass Wookiee coming out, right? It was incredible to see. I was like, wow. I was taken back. Kind of like Predator. Just a badass looking. Almost like Chewbacca on steroids at that point. But what I thought, I think he, very cool character. I would love to see him, in more content. The only thing is going to be, I think, the language barrier, right? We're kind of seeing it with the Tusken Raiders, how they're not speaking English, and there's a lot of one-way dialogue. So if we see more of him, at least to my perception of it, right? My initial perception. I don't know if he's able to speak English or whatnot. So it's going to be interesting to see him interact, as we go further on.
All right, so this basically wraps up the present day storyline, because we're going to end up in a minute where Boba Fett goes and takes a nap for the rest of the episode, and we go have dreams about his flashbacks. But before we get there, I want to sort of put in here the theory here, because we still don't know exactly who put the hit out on Boba Fett. Because now I think we've got 3 candidates clear. We have the mayor, we have Lady Garza, and we have the Hutt twins, who said they didn't want to do it now, but I could easily see them sort of like sending this team out in advance to do the dirty work. So Pete, pick your fighter. Who put the hit out?
I'm going to add a 4th one to the ring, and I'm going to say the I don't know what you would call it, but the assistant to the mayor.
Oh, the major domo.
I think he might be in cahoots with someone, like maybe the Jabbas themselves. The Hutts. Excuse me. I don't I don't know, but I have a feeling that the mayor knows what's going on, but I feel like maybe he's calling the shots a little bit when it comes to that. So I'm going to throw that name into the ring.
Okay, Nick, who are you putting your chip on?
All of them. I think Jabba. I said Jabba because Pete did. The Hutts.
Cousins.
The Hutts are technically the ones who are putting the hit, but they made Jennifer Beals' character do it. So I think she did it as of their wish.
Yeah. And the mayor's tied into this because...
Yeah, and the mayor's tied into it because they're all part of the same thing, and they feel that the way that the Hutts rule with the fear is better for business for them.
Yeah. And I will also point out the show right now, the canon is calling them the twins. So we can call them the twins, say ourselves a shorthand for Jabba's cousins.
All right. Yes, they're the twins.
All right. And Mike, who are you putting your chip on?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, everyone has valid points here. I like what I'm hearing. But, I think maybe Madame Garza, because, after all, she did pay Boba and Fennec, right? She actually did issue out, money just to show as tribute. So because of that, I feel like maybe she's trying to buy in favor, but kind of killing with them with kindness in that respect. But then, they're going, she's going to maybe backstab them, at some point later on. So I think there could be some kind of, some false hope there, and that she might, go back on her word.
I'm still putting my chip on the mayor. I still think that's the way he interacted with them. Like, he was way too cocky, sort of like, feeling like, oh, I have all the power. You can't do anything to me. So even though I tried to kill you, I'll just brush it off, give you your tribute, and then you go away, and then we worry about it later. So I'm still putting my chip on the mayor, Pete.
Something to add is Jennifer Beals pays them off, and then they get attacked right outside. Let's say the hit's successful and it was her. She can just walk outside and get her money.
Yeah.
Like, she'd go out there, she has a helmet full of money. Let's say there's $100 in there, I'm sure it's more. And the hit cost 30. Here's 30. Here's my 70. Okay, bye. Done.
Yeah.
So I'm not fooled at all by her paying them off.
All right, so we'll put a pin in that one. And now we're going to go back to the past. We spend the rest of the episode in the flashback here. And we spent a lot of time, Pete, seeing Boba Fett become immersed in the culture of the Tusken Raiders after he wins their favor by killing the creature and saving the kids. So what'd you think about that whole choice here? See how Boba ingratiates himself with them.
It's a ton of time in that episode. I would
about 2/3.
I was about to say the 2/3 or 75% of that episode was that flashback. I'm okay with it. I'm not necessarily overwhelmed with excitement about it, but I'm okay with it. I think that seeing what happened to Boba Fett between the current timeline and back when we saw him in the last Star Wars movie of the originals, I think that's great. I don't know where they're going with it as far as flashback wise. I can see how it could tie into the timeline, like maybe Tusken Raiders help Boba Fett toward the end of the season or something like that. So you build that bond in the beginning and then toward the end they come back. Like I said, I'm fine with it. If they have a pretty cool scene with the train, I thought that was a cool, well done scene. Little cookie cutter for me too. Just I'm going to train people in how to ride the speeder, and they're going to train me how to fight. We're going to work together, and still very nice to see. Again, not trying to bash it, but it was just kind of for me.
Yeah, I did like Nick. We see him training to use the gaffy stick, and he's being taught the right way. And then as he's learning, the camp gets attacked by the bullet train with all the gangsters on it who are just shooting to kill these guys. And then he says, you know what, I'm going out tonight. I got an idea. He walks to a dive bar. He kills a gang of I forget what the species is, but he kills all of them with just a gaffy stick and a gun. Walks in, takes care of business, takes a drink and leaves with 4 speeders. So that's a hell of an impressive fight.
Well, Mike, if you didn't know, that's no dive bar. That is the world famous, galaxy famous Tashi Station mentioned by Luke in episode 4. And those random people in there were not random people. Those are Luke's friends from childhood that were in a deleted scene in episode 4. They got actors who look exactly like them. The girl was actually Luke's childhood crush. And apparently in the novelization of The Last Jedi, Luke, I say apparently because I didn't read it, or the novelization of The Last Jedi, Luke fantasizes about what life would be like if he had never left with Obi-Wan, and he thinks he would have married her. So that was not just a random two people in there that we're going to see more. We're not going to see them again because, that was just a little cameo. When that was Tashi Station, they took the interior. If you watch the deleted scene, you can find it on YouTube. It's the exact same interior that it was in 1977. So that was a nice callback there. But it doesn't answer your question. And to answer your question, it was really cool to see him kick ass again because we hadn't seen that yet. And that was something that we were like, in Mandalorian, which we're led to believe is a few weeks before this, maybe even a few days. I would say a few weeks before this. He was kicking ass left and right. And now he seems like he's getting beat up all the time. So, I mean, you see what I'm saying? I know that was later on, the Mandalorians after this in the timeline, but even in the present day, he's getting beat up. And I'm just the whole time I'm watching the show, I'm like, why is he getting beat up all the time? Because he was kicking ass in Mandalorian. And it's nice to see him, deal it.
Yeah, Mike, give me a grade here on Boba Fett's fighting skills in the bar.
Oh, great on his fighting skills. I think it was fantastic. I mean, he kicked ass and took names, right? I thought he was amazing. I guess I don't know. I mean, maybe an 8 out of 10, maybe. I don't know. I think he did a great job. The gun that he had, he was getting a little too aggressive with that. It wound up breaking on him, and he had to revert to the gaffy stick. So he was whooping ass, which was awesome. But one thing I noticed, which is kind of funny in the scene, when he arrived at Tashi Station, I think one of the bikers, as I call them, that one of them was playing an arcade game like Galaga. I think that could have been a power converter, but it reminded me of him being in an actual arcade, playing one of those classic games. So I thought that was kind of cool to see.
Pete, was it a missed opportunity that we didn't have a biker voiced by Christian Slater?
No. I see where you're getting at. I think if Christian Slater's voice came out of one of those characters, it wouldn't fit. I just don't think it would fit at all. If it was a Lego character like it was in the movie that we're referencing, I would say, or the short, I should say, we're referencing, sure. But yeah, that'd probably just be too funny.
Yeah, Nick, what would be the best way to get Christian Slater in the live action Star Wars?
I don't see the point. I don't know. I never thought about that at 9:40 p.m. on January 5th. The first time I ever thought of that. But I have a question for the table here. Is do you think? And I don't know the answer to this. I'm asking to see if you guys have an answer for me because I don't know that much about character development and what's considered good. Sometimes people say, "Oh, it was great," and other people say it sucked at the same time. So I don't know. Do you think Boba not knowing how to fight with the stick, learning how to fight, immediately going to the bar and using the skills that he learned, is that good character development or is it rushed? Shouldn't that have happened 2 episodes from now, or is that a good thing? I don't know.
It's tough to judge because I feel like you don't see exactly how long he was practicing before the bullet train comes and kills a bunch of Tuskens. So
right,
you
could be a time gap there.
You could have practiced 3 more weeks and then they happen to be very good at it by the time the train shows up. He goes out to get revenge.
I know. I also want to add to it. When I think of character development, I don't think of skill. I think of way of thinking and how that character progresses in their decisions. It's hard because you can have a movie. I don't know. Let's throw the Karate Kid out there, right? He goes from not knowing karate in 2 hours. Now he's competing, right? I feel like with skills, it's very difficult in Hollywood and in motion pictures and in that whole department, it's hard to actually show how much time goes into a skill to learn it. I think when we think of character development, we should be thinking of, did that character learn something to sway his or her decisions and how they progress in their own values? So in this particular instance, I don't know if it's character development. It is a bit rushed, but it's also well, we only got 4 more episodes. We can't just keep sitting there waiting to see him train using a gaffy stick.
Yeah. And Mike, I want to go to you for a second also, because I'm going to put a pin in the character development thing here in terms of the training thing. I think the way Pete talked about, I think the way we do that is you get the montages of here's them practicing several times and slowly getting better. We did get that where Boba brings the speeders back to the Tusken camp, and then we first see them trying to destroy speeders. No, wait. These are we're going to use these. And then I thought the train sequence of him teaching them how to ride the speeders and jump from speeder to speeder was so funny.
Yeah, I thought so too. Especially at the beginning when he was going like a banta, like a banta. I thought that was great. That's gonna be the next dance craze, right? Teach me how to Dougie then like a banta. Yeah. But I thought it was definitely great to see the montage and it's quick, but showing the progression of teaching the Tusken Raiders how to ride the speeders. But then going back to Nick's question about being able to fight right away in Tashi Station, he wasn't fighting other Tusken Raiders. He was fighting he was fighting another species at that point. So I think you can't really grade in terms of that kind of development as Nick was trying to go through, until you actually see him fighting well against other Tusken Raiders. He could have been, swinging that gaffy stick, against regular people, but that, you could normally do that. It's seeing how the opposite person will reflect that and to determine skill level.
Yeah, Nick, I'll add two things onto that point that he made here. Number one, we have to also remember that Boba Fett's a clone and that he has like enhanced genetic ability to like do things. So he probably learned that skill quicker than we thought he would. And number
an unaltered clone.
Unaltered clone, but he did have all of Django's skills. So Django was a quick study on a lot of things. And number two, those guys are probably drunk as hell. So probably had a huge advantage fighting them.
Probably. If the cantina there, Tashi Station, was anything like the cantina at Galaxy's Edge, I don't blame them. Those drinks are delicious. Delicious.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the little driver's ed scene.
Yeah.
Too. That was fun. I didn't expect to see Boba Fett teaching driver's ed to Tusken Raiders when you told me the Book of Boba Fett was coming out in December.
Yeah. Pete, I feel like the gif of Boba Fett like going like drive, reverse. That's got to be the next gif coming out of Star Wars.
I'm sure it already is. You think that someone hasn't done that right? I'm sure I could go on a GIF website right now and find it. It's gonna blow up.
Yeah, this is gonna be the first thing. Sort of like Grogu drinking the soup in Mandalorian. This is gonna be the next one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the bullet train sequence before we get.
Yeah, I found it already.
Yeah, yeah. Before we get deeper into it, Mike. Now we figure out where Elon Musk is in the Star Wars universe. He's building bullet trains for gangsters.
Is that what's going on there? Yeah, I gotta say, that train scene, even though we've already seen a couple of them in Star Wars, it does hit close to home. When I see those train scenes, it reminds me of the Ord Mantell mission in the Shadows of the Empire on N64. Great Star Wars game, and just seeing that much action. Yeah, it's kind of been repeated, but just to see our heroes kind of take over. I think that was a great scene, in terms of everything. That little droid, who's the conductor, he ticks me off because, he just bounces and then, we don't know anything about him. He just darts off. So I'm sure we'll probably see him at some point too, or maybe not. He could have been just hired by the clan to help, by the Pike. So, we'll see.
Yeah, Nick, I think 3/4 of the budget of this episode went into the bullet train fight. I think they spent it well. The fight was actually very well done.
It was a good fight. I see one thing that got on my nerves though. At one point, one of the Tusken Raiders got onto the train, and he was taking names. He was going. So why was that not Boba Fett? Isn't that why we're here, to see him take names? And he's not taking names. But I have another question for you guys, and I don't know the answer to that, because I don't know that much about like filmmaking and this and that. I'm watching all these reviews of the episode, studying up for our talk tonight, and someone goes, "This is a great scene. It completely parallels." I didn't see the movie, but The Last Samurai, how they have them prisoner at the end. In my mind, I could be wrong. Isn't that a bad thing that you're just like, if you're parallel, like, isn't that a bad thing because it's not original?
It depends on, to me. I feel like if you're paying homage to it and putting enough of a spin on it, I think it's fine. I think you're really just ripping it like shot for shot. That's when you have the problem. Would you agree with that, Pete?
Okay.
I agree. I mean, we saw something like that already in episode 1 when I made the comment about the Iron Man scene.
Yeah.
When that's sitting there and the droids are putting on his armor, literally standing in the exact same pose that Tony Stark does when his armor is going on. Obviously, Tony Stark's armor a lot more intricate, but like it was the same thing. Some people don't mind it. Some people absolutely hate it. I'm like in the middle. I'm like, okay, we've seen this like you couldn't have come up with an original idea or just have him put his own armor on. It honestly depends on the right. I mean, some people watch, episode 9 of Star Wars and think it's the greatest Star Wars film. Don't agree with it, but some people have that mentality. So it depends on the viewer.
Our list did not agree. Episode 9.
No, I did not agree. And Pete, what was your general take on the bullet train fight?
I think it was really good. I'm not terribly pissed off that the Tusken Raider did a lot of work on that train. Especially if the Tusken Raiders are going to be a big part of this season. You want to kind of show that they're capable of showing Boba Fett a thing or two, which we saw that in this episode where the Tusken Raiders are actually training him on how they fight. I also really liked that we saw the Pikes and Spice came up. I think that was a really cool connection between, watching the Clone Wars and all of the, Solo and all of that. So I think that part probably was the best part of the episode for me. It was probably the main part, right? But yeah, very cool scene.
Yeah, and Mike, let's get to the deal with the Pikes, where basically Boba Fett and the Tusken Raiders capture the train, they crash it, and they capture all the Pikes, and Boba Fett basically says, "Hey, I'm gonna this is their sacred land. You can't kill them anymore. If you want to come through, you have to pay a toll. I ain't doing you a favor. I'm letting you live." And the guys, and you can walk single file in a line towards the sun. You'll get to Anchorhead by the morning, and they say, "Wait, we're gonna die of thirst. Here, we'll give you black melons that have the milk, and you will survive on those until you get there." So I would say pretty generous offer from Boba Fett, considering they tried to wipe out the people he's allied with.
I think so. Very generous of Boba, but it all goes back to his idea of ruling with respect, right? Which is, I think a core, idea of his as he, comes into power. I thought it was kind of funny because he's handing out these black melons when in the last episode, he was trying to get one, and it was a little harder for him to do that. So I thought, that was interesting there. But just basically kind of showing that the Tuskens have dominance over their ancient land. I think that was great. He's respecting them, in return for all of the the efforts that they went through to help him train, and giving him all these these new just these new opportunities. So I thought it was a very cool scene.
Yeah, Nick, I think Mike has a great point here. I think we joke about how Boba's line in the church. Oh, I'm ruling with respect. We have the tracker going for it. We'll get to that in a bit, but I do think it's something interesting where we're picking up a lot of what he learned in his time with the Tusken Raiders and how he's carrying that forward into his present day life. And I think that here with the deal with the Syndicate, I think is a very good spot to see where that sort of origin points is.
Yeah, that's a very good point. He's not just saying rule with respect. He is, but you can see why he's saying it now. You know what I mean? Now that you see what he did in the last 5 years. Now, we're led to believe, by the way, that all this is happening during the time of Return of the Jedi. Because I can't imagine he was in that pit longer than a day, right?
Yeah.
So this is all happening during the events of Return of the Jedi, which is kind of cool when you think about it. Maybe you'll see a little something you'd be walking around like, oh, look, that star's gone. Something like that, But, yeah. A big thing that I am excited for in the future, though, is this is the second time now in 2 weeks that we've had a reference to the Shadow Collective or Crimson Dawn more specifically. With the Pikes, with the song playing last week, Kiara's got to show up. She has to.
Yeah.
I think it'd be the thing is the problem is that Emilia Clarke plays her, and that's she's not. I would imagine not a cheap actress.
I think the issue's not the budget with Emilia Clarke. I think it's just what is she doing? And she have time to drop by for a week and film some scenes?
Well, I have some news for you, Pete. Before you go, what if it's not Emilia Clarke?
They recast it?
What if it's not Kiara? Where did Kiara come from? What movie?
Solo.
What if it's Han Solo?
They're not getting Harrison Ford in this show. There's no shot in hell.
Okay, yeah, Mike, before you continue, they filmed this show in London, and when they filmed it, Harrison Ford was spotted in London during the time.
It's a possibility. Bring back Maul.
The rumors are that Harrison Ford is in the show. Those are the big rumors.
Nick, that's very interesting. And, and to just add to that, Disney loves the CGI remapping, the de-aging. So this is another opportunity for them to bring in, a character that we all love and, do the same magic on him. So
we all say, he always said, oh, he hated Star Wars. He hated Star Wars. He did
right?
He did 2 of the last 3 sequels, or 2 of the 3 sequels.
Well,
So
to be fair,
how much does he really hate it?
To be fair, though, they let him die in one of them, which he's been begging for since episode 5. So he got to die in one. Then he showed up for like a scene in the second one.
I think at the end of the day, he's just not a huge Star Wars guy the way Mark Hamill is. Like Mark Hamill, if you saw him in person, and let's say there was no one around, I'm sure he doesn't want everyone screaming in his face, like, "Oh my God, it's Mark Hamill!" But if you were with him, like you saw him alone, kind of thing, I'm sure he would talk Star Wars with you. Harrison Ford would be like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't care."
Yeah.
But when the money's in front of him, I think he's gonna act.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And Pete, like, do you buy this possibility that we could see Harrison Ford pop up in here?
Listen, I thought Moff Gideon was going to pop up, so honestly, point. If he pops up, great. I don't know. The way they've structured this show has pissed me off so much, and we'll get into it a little bit later when we give the grade of the episode. But I don't know how much time they have to do it. That's the problem. It has nothing to do with would he make the appearance or would Kiara make the appearance. When the hell are you going to do it? That's where I'm just kind of like waiting, right? So like we have, is it 7 episode or 6 episode season? 7. So we have 5 episodes left. We've got a collective 20 minutes of current timeline, probably a collective hour of past timeline. So yes, when you look at it that way, there's plenty of time in the past timelines to see a character like Harrison Ford, like Han Solo. But if we're going to do anything with the new timeline, that's got to be coming soon. They can't just keep doing this and only have a collective hour out of 7 episodes for the new timeline. I can't see it happening. So if they have the time and they can make it work, absolutely, I could see it happening.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to talk clear about what happens afterwards. And then he comes back in. We go to Nick. We see the scene at night in the village where the chieftain's talking to him about how there are different tribes of us on the planet. We each have different values. And then he sends out the spirit quest by sending a lizard up his nose, and the lizard just inhabits his brain and guides him to some sort of sacred tree where he rips off a branch to make his own gaffy stick. And we get all sorts of visions of Boba's struggles in the past. And that sequence was just bizarre.
So question before I get into it, for you, Mike, I feel like you're going to say yes, because it always seems like whenever something weird happens, this is what you say. Did this come from Avatar: The Last Airbender?
No, this came from Star Trek 2.
Okay. So this is not Avatar: The Last Airbender. Also, about Han Solo, by the way, real quick, all of the characters that are in this show, Boba Fett, I'm assuming Bosk will be in the show at some point, or at least his species, the Mandalorians in general, the Hutts, they all came from the fact that Han Solo exists. All of them would not be in Star Wars if not for Han Solo. But to your question with the bizarre sequence, it was really bizarre. It felt weird for Star Wars. It felt more like, yes, Star Wars, I guess technically a fantasy, right? It's not real. I mean, sci-fi, but like fantasy. It reminded me more of something you'd see in like Game of Thrones or in Lord of the Rings or something more fantasy. Kind of like when, kind of reminded me a little bit of the scene in, I think it was in Infinity War, when Thanos saw little girl Gamora. Was that Infinity? It was Infinity War, right?
Yeah, it was Infinity War.
It kind of reminded me of that. Like, it just didn't fit. Like, that scene was still great in Infinity War because it, he obviously regretted it as soon as he did it, kind of thing. But it didn't seem like it fit in out of nowhere. Kind of like, as I mentioned, how that other scene did. And I mean, it kind of in a way mirrors how the Jedi find their kyber crystals, like how he found his branch.
Yeah.
Kind of. So I guess there's that, but it did seem like kind of out of nowhere. And to me, it blew my mind when the lizard just jumped in his nose. Like, that was like, whoa, like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm sure I hope you were not eating when you watched that scene. I feel like you would attempt to throw up if you watched a lizard run into Tim Morris's nose.
Yeah, I was just very confused about it all. When the Tusken brings out the little vial and opens it up, there's a lizard there. I was like, what? This is a gift, right? And Boba was saying the same thing. Oh, this is for me, a lizard. pops right through his nose. It gives him a whole vision quest, right? Basically going to this tree, which is where, the wood is to make the gaffy stick. But I thought it was interesting because it kind of showed that Boba was going through his demons, right? It kind of went through about that. So, especially when he was, captured by the tree, they kind of reverted back to the scene when he was trapped in the pit of Carcoon. So, I thought that was interesting to see, the two similarities there. But, I thought it was definitely a cool scene, just to see, that the whole passage, for him to find his gaffy stick. I thought that was, a very cool scene to see.
Yeah, and Pete, I do think it sort of brings this full circle to the end of the episode here. We get to the point where like he comes back with the branch, he makes his own gaffy stick. They make him the new ceremonial wardrobe, and then basically he has I'm calling it the Tusken Raider baptism, where like he basically becomes one of them, and like the new Boba Fett is born, as we narrated in the intro here. So I thought it was a pretty cool like way to end the episode, where it's like, oh, like here's the new Boba Fett. This is the guy who we've been seeing in the present timeline, who we saw in Mando season 2. I thought that was a good sort of way to sort of launch us in that journey and end the episode there.
Yeah, 2 words, Darth Vader. That's kind of what I thought of when that happened, right? Character reborn. Darth Vader, it's for the worse, for Boba Fett, maybe the better. Even just like the dark robes and the way that he just transforms into, he puts a hood on, just gave me Darth Vader vibes. Again, I'm fine with it. I don't know where they're going with it. Again, they only have, 5 more episodes to work with. So it'll be interesting if they speed through this stuff or if they continue on this flashback journey. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think a good way to end it. Gives you a nice little cliffhanger to what's to come next. Like, okay, he's reborn as pretty much as a Tusken Raider. Yeah, it was a fine scene.
Yeah, Nick, when I talked to you this morning, I remember you were complaining about it. I was like, oh, we don't need to find out how Boba Fett got his clothes. That was your big critique when we watched the thing there. And I know that originally I thought like, oh, like you go into the Lost Route saying this is the Jack Guy's tattoos, like Stranger in Strange Land. But I think the symbolism there is a little deeper than Jack's tattoos.
It is. I don't hate it. I don't love it though because of what I think it means for the future. Because I'm sitting here and I know we're gonna get into it a little bit more in our next topic here, which is if they spend too much time in the flashbacks. But if you wanted to show me a couple little things like how did Boba get his armor back? How did he get out of the pit? How did he know like where to go? Like how to find Mando? I get that. If you're showing me how he got his robes and how he got his stick, you're gonna have to show me a couple other things too, which leads me to believe the rest of this show is a lot of it's going to be flashbacks. I wouldn't be surprised if more than half of the show for the rest of the way is flashbacks. You still need to show me how did he get his ship back? We know he has his ship, so he needs to get it back. Where is it?
Yeah.
Is it just parked somewhere? Is he going to walk up to it? Are we supposed to assume that? Also, he's in Mandalorian season 1, I guess technically, right?
He shows up at the end when he picks.
So why is he picking up Fennec? How does he know Fennec? Why Fennec? How does he nurse her back to health? What do they talk about before they go meet Mando? You got to show me this stuff too. So I fear that a lot of this show is going to be flashback, like a lot.
Mike, I think there's going to be definitely a flashback sequence where Boba Fett brings her back to the Tusken camp and nurses her back to health. I feel like that's definitely coming.
Yeah, that could happen. I think I personally think that the flashbacks did cover a good majority, right? It kind of shows the introduction of him getting out of the Sarlacc, showing that whole sequence there, getting kidnapped, and captured by the Tuskens. This episode kind of shows, more of his progression, being accepted into the Tusken Raider clan. So I think, maybe the next episode, I think there could be some despair. We've seen a lot of, positive growth. There needs to be something that happens in the next episode that, kind of, shows like a downfall, in the whole flashback sequence. But real quick, just wanted to go back to the gaffy stick. When he brought the branch to get it folded and formed into the gaffy stick, that reminded me of Mando with the Beskar, right? Forming his armor. I thought it was, kind of like, very, very similar, kind of ordeal. So, I thought that was interesting there, but, it was cool to see, why he brought a branch back, right? I kind of thought about it, on the way, but I thought that was very, very interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. And Nick, I want to point out also here, like the episode end itself, I forgot to mention this and was definitely going to get there, but like, I think they went a little too far with the like Tusken baptism, where I think if we gotten the shot of him getting the wardrobe put out, he comes out and like the chieftain nods, that would be a good way to end it. But instead, we get that weird scene where he's doing the traditional dance for about like a minute and a half. I'm like, did we need that?
I completely agree with you. I've never agreed with you more in my life. And I got to tell you, Mike, we are in the minority by far. Everything I'm reading online says it was the most beautiful scene in the history of Star Wars. I'm like, I don't understand. I did not need to see Boba Fett dancing around a fire. I don't get it. We're in the minority.
If I could just add it real quick, I know, I know Tamora Morrison is Maori, right? So I think it kind of, shows a little homage,
To his culture.
to kind of, to his, to his culture. He's able to, put in a little of his influence into the show. And, definitely an interesting thing, but it just shows the bond and the unity, right? It adds to the lore of Star Wars, just seeing that all come together. I even thought, when the Tuskens were talking about how different clans, act in certain ways, we have a perceived notion of the Tusken Raiders being aggressive and ruthless because of what we've seen in the original trilogy, and then in the sequels, the prequels, the prequels. I just thought that, it was interesting to see a new perspective of the Tuskens, and that not all clans are the same. I thought that maybe, they could have heard of what happened with Anakin Skywalker, how he came through and, he terrorized, the whole camp after, they kidnapped his mom. And maybe, that word kind of got spread around and, and that could have caused, the Tuskens to maybe be more, more lenient and not as harsh. But at the same time, that being said, in A New Hope, they never killed Luke. They may have heard him or whatnot. He passed out. They didn't kill him. They had him there. They were scrummaging through the speeder. I thought that was kind of subdued too. So I didn't think really anything that they were being too harsh in that scene as well. Barbaric, yes, but in terms of harsh and killing him and trying to rip him, I didn't think so.
All right, and I think that's a good place to end the episode. And we end it in the flashback. We do spend the last 2/3 of the episode in the flashback. And P, I know you have a lot to say on this. I'll start here because I think the flashback stuff is good. The problem I have is we're spending too much time there. I mean, yes, there is so much to do, and I get that there was a movie planned for Boba Fett, which probably would have covered a lot of this stuff that got scuttled because Solo bombed the box office. But do you think we are spending a little too much time here and not enough time in the present time? It's going to carry forward to Mando and beyond.
I'm concerned that we're too far into it now that we can't go back from this format. I think that the Book of Boba Fett was not organized in the way it should have been. I personally think Book of Boba Fett season 1 should have just been from Sarlacc Pit to how we got the throne. That should have been season 1. Season 2 should have been once he has the throne. Now you start dealing with the mayor. Now you start dealing with that. I think they could have been more concise with that story and a lot more entertaining with that story than giving us 5-10 minutes of current timeline. And then, okay, let me show you what happened, X amount of years ago. I don't think it's going to work for this season. If this was a movie, right? We've gone through, I think, about an hour and 20 minutes already. If this was a movie and the majority of the movie is a flashback to God knows how far behind the current timeline, I don't think anyone would enjoy this movie. I think people are saying, what are we watching this for? We don't even know what's going on with current day Boba Fett. What does this have to do with anything? Are they just going to, in the last episode or in the last 20 minutes, tie it all together in a rush and say, here you go. That was the movie. Here you go. That was the season. I'm terrified that they have gone too far already because they only have 5 episodes left. And they still have a bunch, like Nick was saying, to explain. Where does Fennec come in? How does he get his ship back? What about everything with the Mandalorian? Is that going to be touched upon? Where are we when it comes to him getting the throne? So there is a huge amount of information that we still have left that I feel like even if you try to put it in 2 more episodes, you can't make a season out of 3 episodes after that. You just can't, in my opinion. So again, if they would have just taken the season and said from Sarlacc Pit to Throne and then had season 2 be the current with the mayor, I think that would have worked so much better than what they're doing right now.
Yeah, Nick, Peter's about the movie angle here. Is this sort of with the Black Widow paradox here, where we're getting this flashback content that, like, now we're kind of past the point where we get that big image, the big post-credit tease, the end of Mando 2, of him killing Bib Fortuna and taking the throne, and then we're not spending much time with him on the throne. We're spending a lot of time learning, like, how he got out of the Sarlacc pit and how he got to where he is. I think it's sort of like a misdirect. I don't think that it really makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with Pete that it would have worked nice that way, but let's all be honest. If they did that, season 1 would be horrible.
Yep.
Now, I mentioned this before. We look at it now and go, "Oh, it was so good," and only because it was the first live action Star Wars. Mando season 1 was not that good.
It's a little slow.
It was really slow, but I think you got to sit through the slow to get to the great, and that's what we would have to do with Boba too. But maybe I think we're dealing with a unique situation here. Correct me if I'm wrong. Besides these Disney Plus shows that have been coming out lately, especially with Marvel, have we ever had a TV show about a character that we already know
In
in the world? I mean, like, I'm sure there's some, but you know what I'm saying? There are many. All the time when there's a new show coming out, it's about a new character, a new universe, a new world. Sometimes a shared universe, but a new, a new set of characters, a new stakes. We're getting thrown in with a character that we already know, but it's hard to do that because you have to develop the character. So in their way, they're developing him as everyone thought of him as this badass. And not to say that he's not, but he's not really about that. He's about ruling with respect. And he's learning things from the Tusken Raiders. He's teaching them stuff. That's really what it's about. But it just seems odd to us because we know Boba already. Had we not known Boba, it would be very different to us. It would be like, okay, this guy, we just heard he was a ruthless bounty hunter, but was he really ruthless? ... And then the show started. Like, it would be very different. We know him for, our lifetimes, and before that, people knew him for 10 or so years. So it's different because of that. And yes, I think they're spending way too much time in the flashbacks, and I think it's killing the pacing of the show. I enjoy the flashback content. I enjoy the present content a lot more. I enjoy it. I enjoy both of them. But I don't like how they're spending 2/3 of an episode in the flashback. Now, I would prefer if they did it the way they did, obviously Pete's way, but I would prefer it more so than they do now, if they did it the way they did in episode 1, how they go flashback, present, kind of like that. Like, that's how I mentioned last week that's how it worked in Arrow. In Arrow, they would find something in the environment. They'd probably just place it in there as a prop, but they'd find like a water bottle, and then they'd zoom in on that water bottle, and then they would zoom out. It would be like a same water bottle, but in the past kind of thing. Like, you can zoom in on Boba's eye, I guess, and then zoom out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then they would teach you a lesson in the past, and that lesson would have to do with what's going on in the present. So Oliver Queen was the star of Arrow, would learn that it's not always best to kill and it's better to forgive. And then they'd zoom out, they show you the present, and they would show you that exact moment and how he used that lesson in the present. That's how I think you can execute flashbacks better. The way they're doing it now is just like, here's 15 minutes of what's going on now. It's really cool. There's Huts. There's a really cool Wookiee. He seems awesome. Stop.
For an app.
See you next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the back to tank seems to be the trigger for the flashbacks. Now everybody goes in the back tank gets his flashback time.
Yeah, I guess it's his dreams, because he did mention he was dreaming.
Yeah, those are his dreams. And Mike, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, that being said, with the back to tank, that's the key element that, when he's put to sleep through that, that's when he, goes back on his flashbacks. With this episode, there wasn't enough content, I think, in the present day, in order for him to keep going back and forth from, between the back to tank, in order to encapsulate the full story that we saw in the flashback. I think that's kind of why they did it. I mean, it was already, the episode was 52 minutes long,
Yep.
I mean, it was a longer episode. So, I think they really wanted to encompass the flashback in this episode, for the most.
Or would you rather another scene with the Hutts or the mayor or Jennifer Beals or Fennec and Boba? Would you rather Boba Fett driver's ed? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. No, it seems like they had too much in the past, too many scenes, especially we've talked about this countless times now for the last 13, 14 months on this podcast. Characters by themselves who are the only ones who can talk is bad TV.
Yes.
Well, hopefully it's done with. Hopefully we get a big portion of the flashbacks over with. This was a heavy episode, so I would assume that the following episode, they'll still have the flashback, but I think it's gonna come down to an end. I think we're getting there. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I'm going to throw two things out here about this in terms of the flashbacks. And number one, I think we need at least an answer to this, and the show's not done a good job yet. And Pete, I don't know if you are with me on this. Like, we need to know why exactly Boba Fett wants to take over Jabba's territory. We never have gotten a clear, concise definition of why he wants to rule the Tatooine underworld.
But that's what I'm saying. There's so many questions that need to be answered because we're seeing so far back in the past. It's not like these flashbacks are a year. Or maybe they are. I don't know. But it makes it seem like it's so long ago that they're not connected at all. This is the issue. Nick was talking about how the show Arrow will actually connect the issues. There's no connection so far. There's none. It's just, hey, I'm sorry, say that again.
You say he's dreaming.
Yeah, but there's still no connection. It doesn't make for good TV. It doesn't make for good anything, honestly. If I was on this podcast with you and I just started talking about past things that have to do with Star Wars that have nothing to do with Boba Fett, you'd be like, what the hell are you doing? We're on the show talking about Boba Fett, right? Yes, he's involved, but we have no clue what this has to do with anything. Like Nick said, if it was just a season of these flashbacks, it would be a bad season. Let's be honest. Maybe more than 2/3 of this season has been flashbacks. So we cannot say that this season has been good so far. And I don't think, let's say they get an hour of new content in 7 hours. I don't think a seventh of the season is going to save it and redeem it. That's where I'm getting worried. I listen, they did a great job Mandalorian. Even though Mandalorian season 1 was slow, at least it's brand new characters with a brand new storyline. We're getting through the information of it, but at least I'm learning and saying, okay, Mandalorian has got a bounty. He needs to go do this. And now there's trouble around this bounty. And he decides there's character development. He wants to protect the child instead of give him up. I don't think it was a bad season. Some people thought it was slow. Completely valid point. You can't look, you cannot open up all these doors and expect to solve it in 5 episodes without it really lacking in the current timeline, because they're so deep in these flashbacks now, and they're so deep in all of the things that they have left off of Mandalorian, they cannot stray away from flashbacks for the rest of the season. They can't. There's too many questions. And if they do try to stray away from it, the flashbacks are going to be rushed, and then we'll be on this podcast saying, well, what the hell was that flashback that was rushed? Now we're just like, oh, we just got the answer and it's cheap. So 5 episodes left. I could be completely wrong. They can turn this thing around next week and it's just like, okay, we're back on track. But I just, as someone who's watched a bunch of TV shows and studies character development and studied film in school and stuff, it's so hard for them to not do a poor job at either rushing through the flashback or giving us new timeline content.
Yeah, Mike, I have a theory I want to throw your way. I want to know what you think about this here. I think obviously they filmed Mando 1 and 2 back to back prior to COVID. Boba Fett comes in, they have this huge moment for him, and then we know they have the script of that movie that was supposed to be made sitting back here. What if this was the whole plan? It's like, we're gonna spit the movie out in here. We have some critical development for Mando 3 that we can't really waste time in the Mando season on. So we're gonna have Boba Fett do it, and there's not much actual content there. So it's gonna use the flashbacks in the movie to pad this out. Do you think I'm on something here?
Yeah, you could be. Bringing COVID into the picture. I know it thwarted, a lot of TV shows and movies, and and people had to be creative on how to, tackle that obstacle. So, this could have been, Disney's response, to COVID, and obviously they want to release content, and they have a lot of great things lined up, and it is interesting to see it that way. Very well could be, just to throw it in, and then they have to figure out what they're going to do with Mando, in season 3.
Yeah,
it's logical.
Yeah, because Nick, we have heard that this show, along with Mando and the Ahsoka show, are all connected, and I feel like whatever they're doing in that present time has to push the big story forward here. So I think problem is I don't know how much of it there actually is in the present for us to push the ball forward a little bit.
Not yet. It could be as we get further. There could be appearances from other people. I mean, we didn't see the Darksaber until the basic. I mean, it wasn't the
Season one
post-credit
finale.
scene. It was basically the post-credit scene of
Yeah.
season 1. So before that, it had no connection to other Star Wars material except there's a Yoda-looking dude, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're watching 2 different shows that are both good on their own, but when you put them together, it doesn't really add up. But I know it will add up. They're going to use the Pikes. I mean, not the Pikes, the Sand People. They're going to be involved in the finale. They're going to help him to take over the Hutts. I just don't like watching a show when we know what's going to happen. We know Boba Fett's not dying. We know he's going to take over from the Hutts. The Hutts are either going to die or go away, and the Wookiees either going to join him or die or be defeated and go off on his own. Like, we know what's going to happen, and it's different than a prequel, because in a prequel you know what's going to happen, but you don't know how it's going to happen. And that makes it like a better story. Like, we knew Anakin was turning to the dark side, but we didn't know how or why or who was going to influence him. I mean, we kind of figured it'd be Palpatine, but we weren't sure. And now we're seeing this where it's like, all right, we know he's not going to die. We know he's going to rule the underworld when it's over. But like, it doesn't really matter how. He either kills them or they leave. Either way, it's the same difference.
Yeah, for sure. And let's kind of move forward here. We're going to go into some of our trackers here as we do every episode. We keep track of a bunch of things. I have one I'm propose to add at the end here, but I want to start off first with our character draft, which again, no movement on the character draft. But Mike, since you are new here, I'll get your take here and see how we're doing with this. But our character draft board. So we each drafted characters to figure out, who's going to show up from other shows in Book of Boba Fett. The stakes are here. The winner gets a Hondo Onaka Funko Pop, basically paid for by the other two. So you want to listen to the teams again?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm asking Mike. So
Yeah. Why would he say no?
yeah, so
Why not?
Nick's team is Omega from the Bad Batch, Bo-Katan, and Mando himself. So do you think we could see anybody from there show up?
Sure, I think it's a possibility. I mean, obviously, when you have the flashbacks, they're leading up to when Boba meets Mando. So I'm sure, they will throw something at us from Mando. I think Disney, you have a lot of geniuses there, and they know what we want, and I think they'll definitely throw some of those characters our way.
All right, so that's Nick's team.
Well, Mike, to clear it up for you, if you didn't know, the character needs to appear
physically
in the physical form, no holograms, no mentions, and that's just not to you, that's to anyone in the audience, also to my future self. Hello, future self. So you're aware, they can't just be a holo. They have to actually be.
Can't be a holo.
Can they be in the background? Yes, right.
Yes, they can be in the background.
Okay.
Yeah, don't have to physically talk, but if let's say for example we see a flashback and he watches Mando walk away with his armor, like Mando will get credit for Nick for that.
Okay. So that's my team.
Yeah, so Pete's team here.
No.
Off Gideon.
Nope.
From Mandalorian, Sabine Wren from Rebels, and Hunter from the Bad Batch. So, Mike, thoughts on that team?
Yeah, I don't know about that as much. I might have to go with Nick's team. I think. I'm sorry.
No, it's honestly fine, because as we're watching the episodes, I'm going, wow, I really picked a crappy team.
Sorry,
right.
who was my second? Oh, Bo-Katan. Okay, continue. I
Bo-Katan's.
want to hear your team. Yeah.
All right, and my team, Mike, here's what I got. I have Hondo himself. I have the bounty hunter Cad Bane, and I have Chopper from Rebels. What do you think about my squad?
Well, I hear a lot of people talking about Cad Bane, that that could be an extreme possibility there. That they might throw him into the mix. So you might be onto something there.
Yes,
Mike,
I think Nick has a better. Yeah, go ahead.
Or Phillips, I have a question and a comment.
Yes.
The comment is, I think this is going to end in a 1-0 victory for you. 1-0-0 with Cad Bane. And 2, my question is, what if it's 0-0-0? Could we redraft after episode 6 just in case if we're tied at 0?
We will
not redraft, but get another person.
We will assess at that point, see how we're looking here, because again, it's tough because we could also say no action and push it to Obi-Wan, and if we do draft something then.
Okay.
All right, and here are the trackers we have going on here for the audience. So we have been tracking since Clone Wars the appearances of Hondo Ohnaka. He has 18 appearances, including his appearance at Galaxy's Edge at Disney World. I did update over the last week the appearances of Bo-Katan, the Darksaber, including Mandalorian. Pete, Bo-Katan 13, including Mando. So,
I mean, I'm going to lose anyway, so it don't really matter.
Yeah. And
No,
the Darksaber was also 13. He made 3 appearances in Mando, Nick.
I'm sorry, Nick.
Good.
The trackers are doing well, and I'm really worried that we're not going to hit anything. I feel like
draft.
Not even the draft. I'm just talking about the trackers. Like I just feel like there's going to be
A lot of
shut.
I think you're gonna hit your list right now adds up to quick math. To 26 plus 18 is 44. You're at 45 total on all these numbers, right?
Yeah.
I would be shocked if this ends up above 50. Shocked. I think it's going to end at maybe one Mando character, maybe one animated character, and maybe one more Tom saying rules respect.
Yeah, so the other ones Nick mentioned, no Mando characters yet. That's one we're keeping track of. I'm sure there's going to be at least one. The animated characters, as Nick mentioned, still at 0. I think we're going to end up with somebody there, especially if Cad Bane does show up. And ruling with respect, still at 1. And I think whenever we have that table dinner where Boba Fett's there with all the people, I think we're going to have ruling respect mentioned again for sure.
Yeah, I'm assuming that'll be the next episode, and I'm assuming that's when my guess when Bosk shows up is next episode.
All right, and I have a new track off the ride here, and this is one I think we might get some action on eventually here. Episodes that do not end in a flashback, because both the first 2 episodes so far have ended in flashbacks.
All right. I think we should add in characters who appear from non-canonical,
Like
non-TV or movie canon.
Yeah.
Meaning, the Black K. And do you include Luke's friends in that? I mean, they were deleted scenes, so I guess they're technically TV, but they're not really canon if they weren't in it, right?
I mean,
if it's a deleted scene, it's not canon, right?
I think they're in the extended universe. I think that one's a little convoluted because I feel like we're going to miss people if we do that.
True.
I think the ending in flat. Pete, what about the one where we're tracking an episode doesn't end in a flashback?
Well, I hope it ends up.
Yeah, I hope we get a couple, but I hard to say now.
All right, well, we'll put those out there, and now we're gonna go forward here. We're gonna do some MVPs and LVPs from the episode, as we do in Clone Wars. We did 3 a season, so now is the episode we're gonna do each person, all us, including Mike, our guest, are gonna have an MVP and LVP of the episode. Where is that? Episode 1. Fennec Shan's in the lead on the leaderboard at +2. The Gamorrean Guards are +1. That was my contribution to the board. And then our LVPs, we have a tie between Pete picked Tusken Raiders. Nick said the Mayor. I said the Rodian prisoner who got sturfed by the sand creature last week. So I'm going to go to Pete first. Who's your MVP this episode?
Oh, boy. Boba Fett did pretty well in this episode in the flashback. I also really like the Tusken Raider guy that just did absolute work on the train. He was pretty cool. I'll give this one to Boba only because this flashback episode at least had a lot of content with him actually getting stuff done and fighting and planning. So I'll give him the MVP of this episode.
Nick, who's the MVP of this episode for you?
Also Boba. He kind of was the only character, if you think about it. 2/3 of the episode is the only person who can speak, and the first third of the episode, no one else did anything. You know what I mean? I would not be shocked if someone here gave it to the Black K because he made such an impact right away. But I'm going with Boba because he was a little bit better at not getting his ass kicked, I guess.
All right, and Mike, your MVP of the episode.
I'm gonna join on the Boba wagon, right? It's Boba. Boba's MVP. He was the main guy that we focused on, and you get to see his progression. You see him whoop some ass. I think he was great. I think he is MVP of this episode.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it a clean sweep with Boba Fett. Although I will give, like Pete said, I'll give the honorable mention here of our Ninja Tusken Raider who was going just taking people down the train. That guy deserved an honorable mention, but Boba Fett did well in both timelines. I think he gets the MVP. Now let's go the other way. The LVP. Who was the worst character in this episode? Mike, since you're our guest, I'll let you start first here. Who is your least valuable player here?
Okay, I'm stuck between two. First is the droid conductor. Well, I can't stand him. I just don't like him. It was ridiculous. We have nothing. We don't know anything about him, and he just starts off. The second character has to be the rat or whoever he is that Chaka's cousin was just using to wipe his face off. He's got to be the LVP for me. Poor guy,
So you use the droid or the rat?
You know what? I think the rat. That was horrible. I felt so bad for him.
All right, so we're gonna call him Towel Rat in the LVP board. So, Nick, you're LVP.
Mike, you have the power to bleep out curse words and edits, right?
I can also, I can do it right now. Also, I can just.
Well, you may have to be live on that, so I don't know if you'll be ready. But I'm giving it to Jennifer Beals' character because basically we called her bullshit. We caught her in the act. She is full of bleep it again. She is full of it, and we caught her. And that's why I'm giving it to her. And also, I wanted to bring up that you could go back in the tracker and change it. I thought I was incorrect that the mayor's little guy, his
Majordomo,
the hand of the king, whatever his name is, I thought he was not going to show up again, so I didn't give him the LVP, not the mayor.
So you
last week.
So you want to go back and dock the Majordomo point and just take
and take the mayor off because I thought like. He just sent him. He might not see him again. It was just like a one scene thing, but he seems like he's going to be in the show. So it's him. I was really not happy about. But Madame Garza, we're on to you.
All right, Pete, you're LVP.
Fennec didn't really do much, but she also wasn't in the episode that much, so I feel like it would be unfair to give her an LVP. But again, I don't know. I would go with Garza as well. I would go with the secretary at the mayor's office. I can go the Pikes too. They were just very like, when they were trying to what are you talking about? Spice? Never heard of the spice. And Boba Fett's like that thing right there, bud. Like it was just so bad. I'll stick with Madame Garza, but the Pikes were a close second for me. It was just very like, I don't know. I always thought just seeing them in other things for Star Wars, they were much smarter. They were more cutthroat. This was just very guys huddled up from a train going, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen that before in my life. That's not mine. It was very weird. So honorable mention for them for me.
Didn't the guy, maybe I'm crazy. I know Michael, not Phillips. Michael, you will probably agree with this. Didn't the guy who was working at the desk at the mayor's office look exactly like the guy who plays Dante in Clerks?
Yeah.
Didn't he give off that vibe at him?
He kind of does. It's just kind of miserable, right?
Yeah. Like he didn't want to be there, and I'm not even supposed to be here today. That's what he looked
exactly. Oh, I love that. It's so great.
All right. I'm up now for my LVP. I'm going to dock the twins because they just show up and they're like, we have a tablet. We rule this thing. And he's like, no, I killed Bib Fortuna. I have this. I'm like, you just show up and get carried around and you make those poor guys basically buckle under the weight of your 2,500 pounds or 2.5 tons or whatever it is. And you add nothing meaningful to the episode. You're just here to sort of be the boogeymen. So I'm docking the twins. I'm going to hate them over the course of the season. I'm telling you that right now. They are adding nothing to the show.
I have a question about Mafia, so I'm assuming that Brescia will be able to answer this.
Yeah.
What is the line of succession? Is it family? Or if I kill the mob boss, am I the mob boss?
Good question, right? I mean,
if they were to die, we know, in Game of Thrones, how when characters die, it's supposed to go on to the son or whoever the next oldest male is, whatever like that. But what if the mob boss dies, like Jabba? Is it? Well, Bib Fortuna took over, I guess, which I'm still confused about. Why did the Hutts wait 5 years to take their throne back? I guess because Fortuna was a puppet head, or figurehead. But are they technically in charge? Is that why it seems like everyone else is thinking they're in charge? You see what I'm getting at?
Sure. I think so. I think with the mob, it all depends on who's fit to rule. You can have, And you could have a son who could be the heir, to the throne, perhaps, but it changes. It does change hands. It's all under one family, but it could be different, people actually ruling under that family. Like you said with Bib Fortuna, he took over. He was part of, Jabba's whole thing, right? He was La Cosa Nostra di Jabba, I would say, right? But I think, because of that, the twins were okay with that. I'm sure that they had, some power there. That the Hutts in general had power because Bib was in power, more directive. He was more hands-on from what we saw, at least.
Right.
So
I only ask you because I know your family has ties with the mafia, so just want to make sure.
That's not true. No. Oh man. but it's definitely a good point to raise up.
Yeah, and people are wondering, that's how Mike got on this podcast, his ties to the mafia.
Yeah, he caught something of mine off the back of a truck, and he kind of held me hostage, so I kind of forced to ask him to be on.
They got me on, right?
Yeah.
All right. Last piece of business here. We're going to rate the episode on a scale of 0 to 10. And last week's episode averaged a 6 from the three of us. Mike's going to make a rating too. So we're going to start out here. P, I know you're sort of the low man here. What's your rating on the episode?
I think last week I gave last week's episode a 6. I'm going to go with a 5. The reason why I'm going down is not because of the action that was in the episode, but as a Book of Boba Fett episode, I don't want to say it's confusing. It's just, it doesn't make sense, the organization. I think having less current timeline is hurting the show more than it's helping. Like I said before, if they were to go and make the first full season, what I would said, Sarlacc Pit the Throne, it would have been a lot better. I have to just give it a 5. Again, entertaining, taking the episode for what it's worth and just watching it without an outside opinion or going in with any, assumptions. Great episode. It's fun to watch. Train scene's great. Seeing the Pikes was great. Seeing Boba Fett, actually kick ass instead of getting his ass kicked was nice. But as a Book of Boba Fett season episode, got to go middle of the road 5.
Yeah, you gave it a 5 last week. So you have actually on par with what you did last week.
So on par.
All right. So Nick, your grade.
Last week I gave a 7. This week I'm giving a 7. I believe that this episode was really good. And if you asked me this same question 12 hours ago, I would have told you it was 2 or a 3. And it just kind of grew on me once I learned more about like the stuff. So let me be honest. I woke up this morning and I went on my phone and I'm looking and I was on Reddit and I'm on the Book of Boba Fett subreddit. Like I didn't choose to go to it. It should have been my home feed. And it was a spoiler tag, so I didn't open it. But the caption was, "Someone tell me everything about this character." And in my mind, I'm like, "Oh my God, it's Cad Bane. Cad Bane's in the show. I can't wait to watch it." I sprinted downstairs. I was tripping down the steps, everything, running down the stairs to get there. I turned it on, and there's no Cad Bane. And I'm like, "What?" And then I looked after the episode. I look and see who it was, and it was the Black K. And I'm like, okay, all right, I get it. But like, yeah, I hated it at first. I like it now. The reason I'm not giving it an 8, 9, or 10 is because I think they're spending way too much time in flashbacks. And that's the only thing that's bringing it down for me. But I'm excited for what it's going to bring. And I like the show.
I'm going to be controversial here. I'm going to go up to an 8 on this episode because I really think that they've spending the time in the flashback is a choice. Then that while I'm there and the episode there, I think that is why I can't go higher than 8. But what they did in the flashback was stellar because like everything had a purpose. It all worked well. You had some laughs. You had some good serious moments. You had big caravel from Boba Fett, and the stuff in the present, apart from the twin showing up, was pretty good. So I'm giving it an 8. And Brescia, you want to close out? You give us your rating.
Sure. Yeah, Mike, I think I'm going to side with you about the 8. Yes, the flashback, could have been a little shorter. There wasn't too much going on, with the present, but what we've seen so far in both the present and the flashback in this episode, I thought was very critical to showing Boba's progression and his ideals. His whole, once again, reverting back to ruling with respect. He wants to abide by the rules of, being in charge of the Hutt clan, being in charge of his empire now, dealing with the twins. Then it reverts back to, the flashback of how, he really worked his way up to gaining the respect of the Tuskens, and then in doing so, he's able to help them out with with the Pikes, and then showing and demonstrating that he is a respectful person by allowing them to operate under the permission of the Tuskens. It definitely was critical to showing his character. I definitely think it was a great episode. So 8 out of 10.
All right, and to recap, that averaged out to a 7. Now is the top episode of the season thus far. 2 and 1 is the current rankings here, Nick.
You're saying 2 then 1 like is better?
That's our average, based on our average.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see that. I don't have any disagreements with that.
All right, let's go ahead now. Let's make a quick call here. I want to start doing this here. Put one thing on record. It's going to happen in chapter 3. Pete, what's your prediction here?
Flashback. I think in 3 we're going to get more of that Wookiee character. I think we're going to get more of the twins. I think we'll still have a flashback, but I'm hoping that they do more current timeline, because now they have a lot more to work with, right? It's not just starting off from scratch. They have a lot to work with now. They can do a lot of current timeline stuff. I also think that if they do a flashback, we get a flashback where Fennec's involved.
Okay. Nick, your prediction.
I want to just ask or say this to you, everybody here, that if we're going to do this week over week with the predictions, I think it's a given. The flashbacks are part of the show. I think we should do a prediction on what's going to happen with the flashbacks and what's going to happen with the present. So I'm going to start that trend in the present. I believe that what's going to happen is he's going to have we already know this from the trailer, that there's some sort of meeting with a lot of, it looks like he's asking permission for the different crime families to kill
The Hutts.
the twins. Yeah. My prediction is at that meeting, you will see Bosk, or he will have some sort of talk with him and whatnot. I think Bosk will be there. And my prediction with the past is that he, now that he has his garments, if you will, and his stick and this and that, you're going to have to see, I think we're going to see a considerable time jump in that. And I think that will mean that it's possibly time for either the ship or Fennec. So since Pete said the Fennec, I'm going to say the ship.
Okay, so you're putting time jump in the flashback, and we find out where his ship is.
Yeah. And I guess Pete said that it has to do with Fennec. He said Black K in the present and Fennec in the past.
All right. I'm going to put out here in general, I'm going to say, and I think we are going to update a tracker next week. I don't know which one. It's not going to be the new one, the end in the flashback one. I think we're going to update a tracker. That's my big call. I don't know. I feel like something's going to happen. We're not going to be on zeros on all of these for a while. So I think we're updating a tracker. And I do think, I agree with you on the time jump. I think we are going forward in the flashbacks quite a bit. I think we're going to get something where I think either this week or next week, we're going to get like a character we recognize in the flashbacks. It's not Fennec Shand.
Oh, well, I mean, don't leave me in don't leave me in suspense. Who? You mean at least an example?
I think the flashback is a spot where you could see Cad Bane pop up.
I think you have more of a chance of seeing Cad Bane in the present than you do in the flashback.
I feel like there's going to be relationships explored in the flashbacks. I think him dealing with Cad Bane is one of them.
That would be cool.
And Mike, any bold prediction from you?
So, I think I'm pretty much in line with what Pete, Nick, and even you were saying. I think, we're going to see more development in the present, right? You're going to see more, of Boba meeting and trying to, round a group of people to, to defend, his rule against twins. And yeah, Bosk could definitely show up, especially, seeing Black K, right? As Nick calls him. I like that. I know. What was it? The Trishodian? Is that the name of it? Trandoshan, yeah. So I know that species and the Wookiees, I don't think they get along so well, from my understanding. So I think that will tie in. Seeing Boss come back into the picture and joining sides with Boba. I think that's going to be great. A nice nice callback to Empire. But like I said with the flashback, I think we got a big chunk of that out of the way. I think now, I think it's all going to be downhill from here. We saw, a great progression, with Boba learning from the Tuskens and learning a lot from them and, joining forces and getting their respect. But something terrible is going to happen in the next episode. And it's going to lead to some kind of, disarray or whatnot. And it's going to lead to Boba leaving or something along those lines.
So you're predicting a tragedy at the Tusken camp.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So we have our calls here. I thank you guys for hopping on here. Let's go around the horns of social media. Pete, if you want to follow you, how can they do that?
You can follow me on Twitter at PJ Consadori 29. As I always say, a bunch of hockey stuff, bunch of Star Wars stuff. So definitely give me a follow if you have Twitter.
Yeah. And Nick, I know you do not give out your handles on Twitter. You are waiting for the proper moment to do that. So who's your follow recommendation of the week?
NY Giants. Get ready for a tweet on Monday morning at what is it, January 10th. That'll say we have relieved Joe Judge of his clown duties and he can go back to doing birthday parties.
Or go back to coaching gym in high school, as Craig Carton likes to say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Mike, do you have any social media you want to give out?
Sure. Yeah. So, my Twitter and my Instagram account are both Brescianator. So BRESCIA NATOR. And a fun fact, Nick here actually came up with that nickname, I think, 7th or 8th grade or something along those lines. I think it was an Italian class.
That's when I learned that he was in the mafia, which is why he's here today.
God. Here we go. Right? But anyway, I like to post some things about Star Wars, whether I'm watching it or if I'm building a Lego creation. I actually have an R2D2 Lego set that I have to build up. So, I'm definitely gonna put that up as my story as soon as it's built, and there you go.
Yeah, and Brescia, since you were here and you also mentioned the Legos, I was showing these guys before the show. I do have the Boba Fett helmet set built. So
wow. Okay, so here's the thing. So I have the R2D2 set I need to build. I still have my Stormtrooper and Darth Vader helmets that I have to build, similar to the Boba Fett. And then I also have in my entertainment center, I have Big Yoda and I have Grogu. So
there you go.
I have them watching me at all times. So it's great. I just love adding more and more to the collection. My fiance doesn't think so. She's like, too much Star Wars, but you know what? It can never be enough Star Wars.
Absolutely not. And I want to thank you for coming on again. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time. It was great to talk about Star Wars with you guys. And, it was fantastic. Thanks again.
No problem. You also follow me on Twitter at mphillips331. That's MPHILIPS331. You follow us on the Sky Guys feed. Again, it's the Sky Guys, a Star Wars podcast on all your favorite podcatchers. Episode's going to be out about a day after recording. You listen to the Just and the Suffering feed. I hope you enjoyed the college basketball Week 18 picks podcast that was out already. Otherwise, this episode's going to be out probably closer to the weekend for you guys, but check it out for sure. Leave your feedback and star ratings. That'll make us even better going forward. And I think that's going to be fantastic. Until then, have a good week, everybody. And we will be back next week with Chapter 3 coverage from the Book of Boba Fett.